Hello and welcome back to Project 380. In the last video, I introduced you to the MG Midget, the new little side project. We gave it a good going over and a service, but couldn't get it started as the starter motor had completely had it. But in this video, hopefully we'll get it started. So it's another day working on the Midget, and we've got a new starter motor. I didn't bother having it rebuilt as it was so cheap to buy a new one. That's looking a lot cleaner, and hopefully this will solve our issue. That's the starter motor back in, time for the rotor housing and the distribution cap and HT leads. And then my camera died. So with that all back in, it's time to try and start it again. Well, the new starter motor definitely works, but it's still not starting. Maybe a little help is needed from our friend Brake and Clutch Cleaner. Stop. And again. Bit of throttle. Stop. With no sign of it firing, I thought I'd get the timing light out, but even the timing light wasn't working. Yep. And then my jump pack was out of juice, so we decided to chuck a brand new battery on the Midget, as it definitely needed one. We've gone for a nice banner battery, red and black, looks pretty good in the car. But yet it still wasn't firing. So I came to the conclusion it was probably an ignition problem. So let's get the distribution cap, HT lead and the rotor housing all off again to see what's going on. So I decided instead of investigating, I would just rebuild the whole thing with some nice new parts. So off comes the rotor arm. Here I'm trying to disconnect the condenser, which was quite a struggle. The connector was definitely seized on, which is not a good sign. And I don't think this had been touched for quite some time as everything was really tight. But out with the old and in with the new. With some nice fresh parts, hopefully this will lead to a spark. And it turns out there was a little bit of insulation missing between the condenser and the rotor, I'm not sure whether that was my issue, but it's definitely not going to help. On with a new condenser and a new rotor arm, everything's moving freely, so it's time to put it back in the car. And I also managed to find the right distribution cap and HT leads to fit this distributor. Hopefully with that nice and new, this should make a difference. To double check we got spark, I'm putting some spark testers between the spark plugs and the HT leads. These light up every time there's a spark. Yep. And as you can see, there's no spark. So the last thing we haven't changed is the coil. More than likely this coil is really old and just doesn't work anymore. So we're changing it out for a nice new one, which unfortunately doesn't look as good as that super gold one. As long as this new coil works, it doesn't matter what it looks like. And for some reason, I really struggled to plug this in. Give it a go. Still no spark though. So with still no spark, there's got to be something wrong with the distribution unit. And yet again, my camera failed. But basically what had happened was the rotor arm wasn't making contact. I had done a bolt up too tight, I loosened it off, moved the contact, and hopefully that works. Right, timing's off. Timing's definitely off. So as you just heard, the engine did start. Didn't sound the best as the timing was out, so what I'm doing now is twisting the distribution unit to try and make the engine run just that little bit better. That rattle you can hear in the background is actually the heater core rattling about inside its housing, not the engine knocking. After playing with a little bit with the distribution unit, I got it to idle okay. So the engine's running, but not great, and as you can see there's fuel vapour coming backwards out of the carb and onto the hand, which leads us onto another problem, which will be in the next video. As per usual, like, comment, share and subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.